Welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll embark on a journey of the mind and consider what our world would have been like if the Roman Empire had survived. This concept has enticed many minds throughout history, from scholars to philosophers. Hence, let's embark on a journey together and discover how our world would be different today had the Roman Empire not crumbled. Before we start, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. But enough of that, let's get into it. The best is yet to come. Could the Roman Empire have developed steam engines 1,700 years earlier than it did in our timeline? And if they did, could they have industrialized and landed on the moon by 300 AD? How would cities with advanced technology from this alternate timeline compare to those of our own world today? Could colonies have been established on other moons and planets within our solar system around 1000 AD, or even interstellar technologies invented for space exploration by 2023 AD? Or would humanity still be stuck in a pre-industrial age, unable to travel among the stars? When discussing the idea of a world in which the Roman Empire never fell, two different views are presented. The first suggests that Rome would have kept on expanding and technology would have advanced quickly, potentially leading to space exploration and travel to exoplanets many light years away. The second school, however, believes that it was due to Rome's fall that we now live in an era of technological advancement. It suggests that Rome's failure created a gap for new concepts, ultimately resulting in industrialization. It is important to know with certainty which opinion is correct. These two possibilities represent extremes. However, what we do know is this: it is highly unlikely that our world would be the same as it is today if the Roman Empire had survived. It is impossible to know for certain what would have happened if the Roman Empire had not fallen, but we can consider potential scenarios. For example, Heron of Alexandria invented a steam machine in 70 AD, and it could have drastically changed the timeline. In an alternate reality, Western Rome may have been able to survive due to Margarin's attempts at restoration, and Pax Romana might have continued without any end-time plague or Justinian plague occurring. Also, Eastern Rome could have kept growing under competent emperors beyond Belisarius II and not collapsed. Now, let us consider some fascinating different realities in which the Roman Empire had not fallen. 1. Heron of Alexandria, an ingenious engineer who lived in Alexandria during the 1st century AD and was renowned for his extraordinary inventions, is perhaps best remembered for experimenting with the Aeoli pile, essentially a precursor to the steam engine. Although it is unclear who initially invented this device, it was mentioned 100 years prior to Heron by Vitruvius and may have even been much older than that. In our timeline, Heron saw this invention as simply a fun toy with no real purpose other than entertainment. However, had he been able to recognize its unparalleled potential, history could have unfolded very differently. A fresh perspective can now be seen. Let's suppose, for any reason, Heron had a eureka moment and realized that the Aeoli pile could be used to power machines. He began experimenting with different inventions, such as steam-powered wagons and tanks, in order to refine the technology. After his death, his predecessors continued building upon his work. Eventually, this led to the invention of Roman triremes powered by steam, followed decades later by the first steam-powered carriages, like the famous Cugnot steam carriage from the late 1700s. It has been suggested that the use of cheap slave labor hindered the Roman Industrial Revolution from taking place. However, I believe that the Romans would have utilized steam engines if they had access to them, as they were aware of the limits of slave labor. This is evident from the presence of an industrial watermill complex at Barbagalo in our timeline, which was used by the Romans to process large amounts of grain into flour, 4.5 metric tons per day, for their city Atlanta. Additionally, there are records showing that other machines such as cranes, ropes, and pulleys, Archimedean screws, etc., were also employed by them. Hence, I disagree with the notion that cheap slave labor hindered or prevented the Industrial Revolution from occurring. So if Heron had built steam engines in this timeline, Rome would have industrialized, and a century later, numerous steam-powered devices would have been seen. His invention will likely have inspired many to follow his example, and inventors all around the empire would arise due to the potential of earning money from inventions. This would have a great effect on the economy, potentially leading to companies being established 1,400 years earlier than our timeline. How exactly cities may have looked in that timeline is quite thought-provoking, but would be an interesting thought experiment nonetheless. If the Roman Empire had had access to these more advanced technologies, would it have survived? Not necessarily. Civil wars within the empire might still have been destructive, and all of its internal issues would need to be resolved in order for it to survive. But one thing is to be said. Even if this Roman Empire fell, this alternate timeline would still be far ahead technologically compared to our own world. One may wonder if the Roman Republic could have avoided its eventual fall had it been more stable. It is plausible that in a different timeline, they would have managed to remain unified and thus be able to fend off the Germanic invaders. If this were the case, then their intrinsic problems potentially could have been solved without resorting to civil wars, which were one of the major contributing factors to its downfall. One can argue that the main problem of the Roman Empire was the reliance on a single person to lead it, and that if its republic had not fallen and instead expanded, then this large Roman Republic may have been more stable. Alternatively, one might imagine that even if the Republic did collapse, as long as there were still capable emperors who followed Octavian and the adoption system had become standard practice, it would likely have become so ingrained in people's minds that civil wars would no longer be a constant necessity for succession. However, for a stable empire to exist, its currency must remain steady, and it must be able to coordinate defense against invasions. If the intrinsic problems of Rome in our timeline had been solved by 200 AD, it is likely that industrialization would have taken place at some point. The Pax Romana saw the Romans build large watermills and other engineering marvels using slaves. This suggests that they were capable of industrializing even then. If they had industrialized around 200 AD, then logically they would be 800 years more technologically advanced than in our current timeline. Even if they had industrialized as early as 400 AD, their technology would have been 1,400 years ahead in such a scenario. Roman architecture could still exist today in 2023, and Rome itself may look like an impressive cyberpunk cityscape, one of the most advanced cities on Earth. The Roman civilization could have been 1,400 years ahead of us, and they would have already electrified many cities by 500 AD. In that timeline, it is a fascinating thought to imagine these classical Greco-Roman temples illuminated by electric light. Furthermore, they may have even built colonies on the Moon and Mars, as well as interstellar spaceships with fusion propulsion, or other more advanced propulsion methods that are still theoretical to us today. This means they would have colonized Alpha Centauri and other nearby star systems, an incredible notion that is fun to dream about. So, what could have happened if the Roman Empire had managed to survive? It is difficult to imagine what the world would look like if the Roman Empire had never declined. We can speculate by picking an alternate timeline, for example, a world where Maxentius defeated Constantine instead of vice versa, a world where Rome discovered America, or even one that the East and West never divided, a world where Majorian had been successful in restoring the Western Roman Empire, a world where the Middle Ages have been prevented, a world in which the Eastern Roman Empire had never fallen, one in which we could have seen a more advanced Constantinople. We may never know for sure, but one thing is certain. It would have changed our world drastically, and we would be living in a very different place today. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more content just like this. If you liked the video, please share your thoughts in the comment section below. See you next time.